And today we continue our journey in the direction of Allah through the best of women. So what we've been doing is we look deeper into the landscape of the nation founded by Mother Hajjar RA and the domestication of the camel throughout space and time until we came full circle to its importance as a commodity within the Arabian lands. We've traveled far and took a break at the ultimate resting station of the original Qibla. And much like how the stars have guided the journey of desert wanderers, we also found our way through the maternal constellations until we found some secrets buried deeply in the sands, and we found, among many things, the daughters of the desert. We found ourselves as women with the rest of society smothered, suffocating, and stuck with chains at our feet. Today, we are bridging this week's topic, Net of Freedom, as we explore on the back of what I mentioned, the networks, communications, and social interactions that actually generate income. And with us to give us further insights into this in studio is researcher Sister Lilla Helzingen. Sister Lilla, assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, and yourself?
Alhamdulillah, very well, and excited to venture into a new topic. Sister Lilla, would you like to proceed with the dua for the day?
Sure, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Subhanallah. We know nothing except that which Allah teaches us. Ya Allah, teach us that which would benefit us and increase us in our knowledge. Let our actions be done for your sake sincerely, and do not place therein any portion for other than you. Indeed, we ask you for your love and the love of those who love you, and the love of all those actions that will lead us to your love. Ya Allah, lighten our hearts through the Quran, beautify our characters through it, and save us from the punishment of the fire through it. Make this Quran a proof for us, and do not make it a proof against us. Show us truth as truth, and grant us the ability to follow it. Grant us truth as truth. Show us truth as truth, and grant us the ability to follow it. Show us falsehood as falsehood, and grant us the ability to abstain from it. Ameen. Thumma ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loosen our tongues and open our chests and make this this particular discussion beneficial for us, particularly our dunya and our akhirah, since we are speaking a lot about business.
Yes.
And may we be protected from the hellfire and forgiven for any mistakes that we've made. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to better if we are making any mistakes or in the wrong. Ameen. And may we, through the inspiration of the role models that we are looking at, may we draw closer to the woman, the best of women, and more specifically the Anbiya and the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the best of creation. Ameen thumma ameen. And again, all for the sake and purpose of being closer and drawing nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ameen thumma ameen.
Ameen. So last week, yes, you did introduce this topic around income, around
Yes.
the whole idea of entrepreneurship, the whole idea of generating money, and you were in fact sort of making analogies and making comparisons and showing us some of the similarities within some of the economic structures that we do have today.
Yes.
We briefly touched on a sort of economic, like I say, or economic structures like socialism, capitalism, very
Yeah.
briefly.
Yes.
And to show us, how we find similarities.
Yeah.
When you were looking, because we are now looking in the direction of Khadija as well.
Yeah, because we were looking briefly at society and societal indoctrination, and we were looking at Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. We were looking at the 4 types of income earners, the employees, self-employed, the business owners, and the investors, just to give like a basic idea of, for example, an employee is a person who sells their time, whereas an investor sells results. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that because I have to add a disclaimer while we're talking. My computer, all my notes are not available to me, so I'm going to have to speak a great deal from memory. But inshallah, after the break, I will just fill in what we've missed out. So last week, we looked at that, and we looked at basically how that quadrant, and Robert Kiyosaki does discuss that in his books, the cash flow quadrant books and the Rich Dad Poor Dad. He does discuss how in society, the leaders are basically trying to encourage you to be poor. So he talked about school system, how it's based on a military model, specifically from Poland, especially after the industrial age, because basically people are groomed to be factory workers, and also like good little soldiers in a sense. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, and if you want to generate wealth, then you're going to have to break free from that. You can't be stuck in the employee mindset. You're going to have to transition into a broader, basically, you're going to have to be a rebel in a sense, and you're going to have to be pretty much ahead of your time. So, what I found, and what I was going to start with this week, was a discussion about how, there is seems to be a conspiracy between, like the education system and the government and the media and the corporates. But you also have to bear in mind that the government officials themselves are also products of the education system. And a lot of our leaders are products of that system. So you can't really expect much from them. And you know what? We all have a very imbalanced view regarding politicians and leaders in general. Like, you might be very impressed if someone's an MP, but they're not necessarily smarter than yourself. And also, even if they are good, even if they are good leaders, even if they have character and they're talented and they're geniuses, there's a pretty good chance that that those that are good are probably spending more time putting out fires because of the idiots around them, making the mistakes that they make.
Or it could also be that we have very specific understandings around what makes you stand out, what makes you good,
Yeah.
what makes you accomplished. We have
Yes.
very sort of, and often myopic understandings around that. So,
Yeah.
for example, and exactly because we are on this idea of money and generating income, that certainly is up there.
Yeah, yeah, and it creates blocks. Now, when it comes to the government, when it comes to leaders and how they affect the economy and how they affect deployment, bear in mind you've got people in power who they themselves are not income generators. They themselves do not have that mindset. And so, like to use Donald Trump, for example, whether you love him or whether you hate him, the reason why so many people voted for him in 2016, because there was this perception that he's a businessman, he understands systems. And there was a sense of like, we're sick of the pretense, we're sick of the image, we want results now. And we want somebody who knows who has a level of sophistication, or at least that was the perception. Allah knows best. But they want somebody who understands systems, who is basically just going to get things done. And if you follow him, if you're somebody who studies business and you study business people, he does actually have that reputation within that sector. So that's the reason why there was that shift in 2016 up until recently. And it's because, look, let's face it, the government, the politicians, the MPs, not all of them actually are on that level of being able to have a sophisticated understanding of multiple systems, how to manage multiple systems, and how to generate income. So, and even if they are really good, and even if they are brilliant, they're probably doing more damage control than anything else, considering all the other chaos that is around us. So, what I'm basically saying is that it's really up to us. It's up to the people. It's up to the public. So it's up to us to build ourselves up and our own income, our income generating skills, if we want to really boost the economy. Because if you build a house, you don't build it from the top down, you build it from the foundation upwards. So I think we have too much of an expectation that those that are above us in the top part of the pyramid, they're going to save us. But we actually need to start thinking about saving ourselves. And we do that through our own, building ourselves up in terms of building ourselves up as individuals, building ourselves up in character, build ourselves up in terms of our skills, our communications, our interactions, our professionalism. So the more we build ourselves up, that is actually where the real growth is going to come from. Because if you look at South Africa, the best success stories, especially in communities, if you think about it, it's people taking charge. It's people being accountable. So we spoke about Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, but also in relation to how, like, the greater conspiracy of how the governments and society kind of plays into that. Like even your loved ones, even your parents and your family, they're not necessarily encouraging because they're just kind of repeating what the indoctrination is. And so that's fairly typical. If you think about it statistically, if most people are poor, then most people are not going to be able to give you the best advice in terms of how to be wealthy.
Yeah.
There's only a minority of people who are able to do that. And we don't always have access to the minority, because statistically they are a minority, therefore they're not always accessible. So a lot of people, when they want to transition from the poverty position or the middle class earning, and they want to grow as income generators and as entrepreneurs, they have to go out of their way to find the small minority of people that actually have these skills. So
But also, Sister Lila, sorry to cut in there. So essentially, this is this idea of transitioning from surviving
yes,
to thriving.